Hi, and welcome back once again to the last of my test of non-sanded pastel paper sample pack from Jackson's. I bought this and I've tested out all 6 kinds of paper they sent me. That resulted in 12 videos because I've tested them with colored pencils, pastel pencils, oil pastels and soft pastels. All of them. And I've kind of given them scores-ish. I didn't have like a firm scale. And the first paper I tested, if I should give it if I tried it again and it wasn't the first one but the last one, I would have given it a better score for colored pencil, but not a super good score. I negatived it here and said I don't want it for this, and that's still kind of true. I had a really hard time layering my colored pencils on this. This is Hahnemühle Lana Colors pastel paper and it's 160 GSM. I also negatived it to pastel pencil, but it was actually one of the papers that turned out to take it fairly okay compared to some of the others. So if I had to do this again, I would have given it a better score. I would probably have said kind of okay on me or something like that. But I wasn't very happy with it at my first impression. The bird is drawn with colored pencil. The background is done with the pastel pencils. It's the Derwent pastel pencils I've done. And the colored pencils I've used have been the Derwent Pro Color and Derwent Color Soft. It can be used, but I would not pick it for actually either of these two medias. Then I tested it with soft pastels and with oil pastels, and it was great with both. I could get the definition I wanted, and I could just keep on layering and stuff with both of them. And now it's been lying here for a while, and you can see the oil from the oil pastels bleed through, but that's kind of to be expected when you use oil pastels on paper. If you want to keep them with other things, you might want to put them in a plastic binder or something, because it might seep through more than one sheet of paper. But absolutely a very good pastel paper as such. I like that it's kind of stiff. It's 160 GSM, and they sell them in different colors, I've noticed. And yeah, if I was strictly a pastel artist, I would definitely pick this as one of the things I would keep in stock. But as I also use colored pencils, I'm not so sure. I'm a little bit on the fence with that. Next up was also from Hahnemühle. This is the Ingress pastel paper. It's only 100 GSM, and it was kind of okay with the colored pencils. Don't expect to get super many layers on here. It's thin, it's 100 GSM, and it's quite soft as well, so it's very easy to accidentally burnish the texture of the paper. So for maybe sketching and stuff, it's kind of okay, but for big multi-layer, thick layer colored pencils, no, don't go there. And you can see how sketchy and scratchy the background looks, and that is because I tried to do it with pastel pencils, and that is just actually down here where I tried to get it dark, the paper started to peel because it just can't take the abrasive movement from the pencil. So not good with the pastel pencils. And here I got the pastels. This is a very terrible drawing of a piece of broccoli, and that is only marginally better. sorry for my lack of skills as a vegetable drawer, but as you can see, it's warped, even though I had it in this plastic binder, and that is because when I was done with this, I gave it fixative. I always add fixative to my pastel drawings, regardless if it is pastel pencils, regular soft pastels, or oil pastels. And it just curled up like this when it got a little wet, so that's a no-go for me. It annoys me. So no, I will not be buying any of Hannah Mueller's Ingress pastel paper. I can't really use it for very much, maybe for sketching, but then I can buy sketch paper that kind of gives me the same result, and I'm quite sure that is cheaper as well. So not super impressed. It can be used for the pastels, and if you work without fixative, then it's probably also going to be fine. It took the layering and stuff okay. It was just I overworked this and messed it up. And over here it worked okay with the soft pastels. It was actually really good with the soft pastels. My negative opinion just came when I added the fixative, and I hadn't used that when I scored it. Then there's one piece from Clairefontaine in the set. This is Clairefontaine Ingress pastel paper. It's a 360 GSM, and it's really heavy textured, and it's good sturdy thick paper. And I really quite liked it with the colored pencil. I didn't finish the drawing. I know that the anatomy of the frog is wrong, but it was not to test. That shoulder should have been down here. Yeah, I might go in and see how much I can correct this, but I got quite a few layers on the back end of this frog, and on this one I also tested an alcohol marker blender, my Pro Marker blender, to blend out the leaf, and that kind of worked okay. You can't make it totally smooth. I'll take this up here because the paper is so heavily textured, and it will show no matter almost how thick you make things. I didn't go in a lot of layers, but at no point did I reach where I couldn't add anything more. This kind of background stuff mess is the pastel pencil, and that was just a hot mess. It didn't pill the surface, but it also didn't really stick well with the paper. It comes off and it doesn't stick to the paper, and it has a really annoying scratchy sound when you try. So I would use it for color pencils, but not for pastel pencils. And already at this point I started to think, well, those pastel pencils are just not good with pretty much anything. I tested it with soft pastels and oil pastels, and it was really good with the soft pastels. I really like how it took to the pastels, and it just kind of stays. You can smear it, but your lines and stuff, they just stay nicely even if you smear them a bit. You might either want to like that the texture of the paper shows through your drawing, or you'll have to find a smoother paper if you don't, because that will show, and it will take a lot of layers to make the structure of the paper completely disappear. The oil pastel was good here too, and it was also possible to make some definition, define some lines and stuff, and you can fill in the texture with oil pastel. And I was going forth and back with the edges of this, and it layers really nicely. Now I did kind of a mess with some of the highlights, and I didn't quite finish the drawing either. But that is not any effect of the paper. It was just that I didn't finish that drawing. But I will definitely be buying some of this. I really quite like it. I love this canvas look to it. And it's feeling nice and sturdy. It didn't curl or nothing. So for pastel work, I will definitely get some of this. And I will really consider doing some pencil work on it as well. Number 4 is Fabriano English Pastel Paper. And you can use colored pencil on it, but I didn't like it. It doesn't really, it's like it doesn't really, it's fairly smooth. It's the smoothest surface of them all, I think. It's 160 GSM and it's pretty stiff anyways. But it was really difficult to get a good smooth coverage here, even though it's not very textured. It kind of went streaky. Now I used mostly pro color for this, but even the soft color didn't take too well to this paper. So yeah, you can use it, but I take the Clairefontaine or yeah, even the Lana color I like better with pastel pencil, with colored pencil. This, I didn't even try hard with the pastel pencil. It was scratchy and weird, and you can make lines, but you can't smudge them. Well, you can, but it gets kind of weird, and most of it comes off on whatever you smudge it with. So that kind of confirmed again that my thought about those pastel pencils. So I tried it with soft pastels, and I gave up because every time you touch it, every time you kind of trying to just soften things, it smears totally. So either you have to kind of just put it on and not touch it, but if you want to touch it, it just comes off. I had so much pigment on my hands, and it was, my table was dusty and stuff. So it doesn't hold on to the soft pastels, and that I find actually quite sad and disappointing. Now for the oil pastel, this looked terrible, I know, and that was part because I got too excited. It was really nice to work with the oil pastel on this, because, and I think it's because this paper is kind of absorbent. I think the oil went through. It is already starting to show on the back side a little bit. Normally that takes a few days. But it's like it took the oil and held it into the paper and left, and also kind of held on to the pigment. And I put so much layering and stuff here, and I had a little bit of a problem with the oranges not being good. So I kind of overworked it. I could probably save it if I sat here and tried. But I really, you can see how excited I was. I was like 2 wings, and oh yeah, oil pastels. For oil pastels, this is fantastic. Fabriano English Pastel Paper, 160 GSM. If I only did oil pastels, I would definitely buy it. But since I'm kind of more an all-round person, and it failed with the 3 others, no, that's not the first kind of pastel paper I am running out to buy, that's for sure. But if you really want something that is nice to work on with oil pastels, this is the paper to get. My pile here. So number 5 is also a Fabriano. This is the Tiziano pastel paper. It is structured. It's the same paper weight as the English paper, but it's a little smoother, or Yeah, no, it's not smoother. It's maybe a little more textured. It's more textured, but it feels smooth. And I did this colored pencil. I did this with the Pro Color and this with the soft color. The soft color liked this paper a lot more than the Pro Color did. What I probably would do is use a soft pencil to make the big outlines and stuff, to cover the big areas, and then use a harder pencil to go in and do details, because you can do that. I tested the Pro Color on this as well, and it kind of worked, but it don't know if I can show it, if I can get it to glare off. It flattened. This paper is very absorbent, so it sucked out the ink from the marker real much, and I actually had to pause the video and dry it with a hairdryer, and that still didn't even dry it up. But even though I didn't push, it is like the texture disappeared here. It's like kind of feels like an embossed texture, and it kind of vanished when it got moist. So I wouldn't use it with any kind of liquid kind of blender. And this one actually worked great with the pastel pencils. That was the first one. I'd say the Lana color could maybe do somewhat the same, but this one was actually quite nice. I could layer and make highlights and shadows, and I could move it around a little bit without it all coming off. So that was a surprise, because I had written off those pastel pencils at this point. So it got okay for colored pencils, and approved for pastel pencils. The soft pastels worked really well on this. I tried to do a kookaburra. I overdid it a little bit. Usually it's a little lighter in the base color. But I could just layer and layer and layer and smudge it out to as much or as little as I liked, and still add layers, so that, and without putting any fixative in between layers. So that was really nice. I could define lines and softer cover and stuff. So it was really quite a good pastel paper, and it worked okay with oil pastels. It felt a little weird, but I think part of it was because my yellow here turned out to be nowhere as opaque as I wanted it to be. So I was kind of annoyed with that, and I think that kind of, when I look at this, I actually think it worked out okay. It's not the best drawing in the world, but I could do what I needed to do, and I actually also did approve it for oil pastels. It didn't feel quite as good as the Ingress paper maybe, but absolutely usable. And I'd say, as the Ingress paper was kind of if I was to buy Fabriano pastel paper, this would be it, because I can use it with whatever medium I like. So I quite like this Tassiano pastel paper. And last but definitely not least, we got Canson Metains pastel paper. I did a horse drawing, mostly with Color Soft, and a little bit of Pro Color. I have used this paper before, and it was the only one I knew ahead of time. And it has two sides to it that is different. All paper has two sides, but it has like a rough side and a slightly smoother side, and the slightly smoother side is actually really good with colored pencils. And it worked okay, not fantastic, but it worked okay with my pastel pencils as well. I didn't finish this drawing. I could have drawn on it for another couple of hours without any problems. I have finished color pencil pieces on this paper, and I can talk a little bit more about this than the others, because I've tried it with different things. I used watercolor on it. It buggles, but it holds it. I have used markers on it. I have had it through the printer. Lots of stuff, and it just kind of goes along with everything you make it do. My drawings here are a little uninspired. This is the rear end of a horse, and here's a feathered horse hoof, and it works great with soft pastels and oil pastels as well. It has a tendency to hold the oils from the oil pastels quite well. It takes quite a long time for it to soak through. I'm not even sure I have one where I have any oil marks on the back. It's a 350 GSM paper, so it's nearly cardstock. But it is a really good paper, and I got lots of it, and I will keep it around. I'd say this is my choice of the paper in this package of non-sanded pastel paper. This is my favorite. It sells also in lots of colors, and I haven't checked the prices because it also depends if you buy them in pads or in whole sheets and where in the world you buy them and stuff. So check out what you got available to you. But that is, I think that's the best one of the lot, and that's the one I'll keep on buying. I might consider the Fabriano Tiziano. I'm not sure about the other four. I use my paper for so many different things. They really need to be good with multiple kind of things. But absolutely, if you are crazy about oil pastels, I think this one was fantastic. Fabriano Ingress. In terms of soft pastels, I only have like a really negative one, and that's the Fabriano Ingress. Forget it for soft pastels. All the others are good in each the different unique way for soft pastels. I like the Tiziano, of course, the Mutane, and the Clairefontaine. That's probably the three of my favorites. The Hahnemuhle Ingress, it works. I just find it too thin and flimsy. And the Lana color is also quite good for pastel paper. Now, if I was just going to buy something I wanted to do soft pastels on, I would get the Clairefontaine Ingress pastel paper. I love this, and also for the oils. So this, I hope, was a useful walkthrough of these 6 kinds of paper. It has been really interesting for me to do, and I think if you view the whole series, you can either watch the pencils or the pastels as you like, but it really shows. I've used the same pencils and pastels all the way through. I've used Pro Color and Soft Color to illustrate a hard and a soft pencil, and I won't bring them out, but I've used Royal Talents Rembrandt soft pastels, and I've used Sennelier's oil pastels. So, and I've used all of it on different paper, and if you hear me talk and see it, it's very different how I enjoyed working with them depending on the paper I was using. So it is super important that you find paper that match whatever medium you are working with. It has to work out for you, and if you're not getting the results you hope for, it's not necessarily your skills or either material really that is anything the matter with. It might be the match of the materials that is wrong. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I have so much experience, I kind of know when I'm just not really knowing what I'm doing, and when it's my paper or my materials that somehow give in. So that I think is an important thing to keep in mind. Thank you all for watching. I hope you like the review. Please like and subscribe. Take care. Thanks for watching.